Hello and welcome to episode 243 of Page One, the Writers Podcast. I'm Marco.
I'm Derek.
And thanks for joining us on the podcast where we like to speak to authors of all kinds, find out how they got into the industry and try and get as many hints and tips from them as possible. And we've got a huge back catalogue of guests with authors, comic writers, screenwriters, video game writers, comedians, much more. So go and check those out.
That was a good run of episodes.
It was good fun.
Yeah, it was good fun.
So all the episodes, while we've been off from our regular batch of Page One, I've uploaded all the missing episodes. There was a big batch of missing episodes. They're now all on YouTube. So if you are someone that likes to consume your podcasts via YouTube, you can now get them up there. And they're all categorized into different playlists depending on what type of person you're wanting. But some of our most popular YouTube videos are agents and editors, the industry episodes we like to call them. And we're starting a run of those today.
That's right. This week we're chatting with the wonderful Liza DeBlock, who has had a really interesting way in, as so many have, into the world of literary agent. She's began as a literary scout, and we chat to her what a literary scout is, what they do, what that job entails, how important that job is in the industry, and how you can use it as a way into becoming an agent. And then she's worked over at a number of places, Mushins or Mushins. I'm not entirely sure how you say that word. I've doubted myself now, but I'm going to say Mushins. Okay. And now she's at Greenstone Literary, just started there this year. And she chats to us about the stuff which I think so many of you out there are interested in, which is volume of submissions that she gets, how the industry's changed over the years, what she looks for in submissions when you're
what not to do in query letters,
exactly. Yeah.
Especially, we chat all of those things, and talk publishing trends and all that sort of stuff, and so it's a really fun and interesting chat that we have with her. So we'll get straight into it after a quick advert for our Writer's Notebook. If you're listening to this, there isn't an advert. If you're watching it, bonus. And we'll be back at the end of the podcast with a bit more chat and to let you know about next week's guest.
But for now, on with the podcast.
When we have writers on the podcast, I always start by saying, did you always want to be a writer? So did you always want to get into agency? It seems unlikely as a kid that that's something that you were aiming to.
I think I always loved books the most. Kind of growing up, I was the kid that would hide under their covers after their parents put them to bed with a flashlight, reading whatever book I was reading at the time. So I always knew that I wanted to do something with books and storytelling, but I wasn't exactly sure what. And then I kind of did everything that kids do. You go through school, you slowly figure out what you want to do. I went to undergrad and then did postgrad about the history of publishing. So the development of the written word and how we communicate with each other, the development of books, the industry as a whole. And I was kind of using it as an excuse to not get into publishing because I was scared. I didn't know how to do it. But I knew from all my research and stuff that I just liked the book publishing process. And I was very interested in the development of agents because I had to write a paper on the very first literary agent, A.P. Watt. Okay, cool. And it just kind of sparked an interest in me of working with authors. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to do the most. Yeah. So then through various internships with scouting agencies and such, and then my first job in scouting, I then realized I wanted to work with with authors rather than kind of report on books for them. And agencies had always kind of drawn my interest because I also liked international rights and the book world as a whole rather than just the domestic markets. So I kind of just fell into agenting because it kind of had everything that I wanted, working with authors, getting to be creative with them, having that human connection with the book and with that person. And that's just, I just kind of fell into it really. So I knew publishing, but it was a slow develop to get to the agenting bit, I think,
Yeah.
as I figured out what I didn't like in the agency. What I did.
I was going to say that's interesting because I don't think I've ever chatted to anyone before who's done that kind of
Way in.
Yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
history of books and the written word and that's
Yeah.
so you're obviously always fascinated with the, I guess, behind the scenes part of stories and books and
Yeah,
things.
I just like how we communicate. I like how a bunch of us can fall in love with one single story, and the world is based on communication. Our society is based on the beliefs of a story that we tell ourselves, whether that's civic law or religion or anything. We all share a story, and that's how we communicate, and that's how society functions. And I wanted to see, okay, how do we communicate? How do we trust how we communicate? And the development of publishing, of the printed word, fascinated me because originally, if way back when, if you think about like Homer and all of the great epic poems, those were all bards telling stories, and it was the mind that was the most trusted thing. So when written word came around, people are just like, well, you can mess up writing something, whereas the mind is infallible.
Okay.
And then the written word became very trusted. And scribes were wonderful because they just copied books, and they were the most trusted people to uphold our knowledge and our history. And then printing came around, and you can mess up a printing press, and you find errata in the very first like incunabular text where something is printed wrong, and you see the humanness of it. But then printed word became the most trustworthy kind of knowledge. And now we're in a really fun and also weird and crazy age where
Yeah, I
we're
was
saying
going to say.
digital is now the new thing, but you
course.
can code something wrong. What do we trust when just anybody can put something on the internet? So it's been the development of communication and stories that we tell ourselves over the centuries, and the trust that builds between author and reader, whether that's a news article or a book or just a text message. It's all related to information and ultimately what we now know as printing and publishing and media. So I went really meta and really nerd on
I like it.
the knowledge and such, but ultimately it brings back to good books that you just want to share, and knowledge and fun that you want to read. Yeah.
Nice.
And you worked, I think, for Literary Scouts at one point, and that is something that I think unless you're in the publishing industry,
You
it's
don't
not
know
even
that.
a job that people know exists. I mean, what is a Literary Scout?
A literary scout is somebody who works for a foreign publisher. So I worked at Eccles Fisher Associates as my very first job. I interned with Muir Trenchard Scouting as my very first internship. And they all work for foreign publishers, whether that's a German publisher, a Chinese publisher, a Brazilian publisher, any publisher anywhere in the world.
Okay.
Will want to buy books in translation. You're also seeing that more in the UK and in the US and English language books now. But what will happen is a German publisher will come and say, I really need a new book for my romance list. Are there any great romance books that are being published in the UK? And that scout will go call editors and agents and say, what do you guys have coming up that I can then tell my client to buy the rights for to then publish in Germany? So scouts are great because they know everyone and everything in the industry at a time. So I always say, if you want to get into the industry, do your very, very first job or internship with a scout because they know everything.
Okay. Yes, that was my next question because I wanted to ask, is that a good way for listeners who are wondering how to become an agent? Is that how would you recommend going down the scout path?
Yeah, I like that because scouts, because they also know everything and everyone, know who like the best agents are, but they also know the best books, and they have a bird's eye view of the entire industry, of what's selling, of what's not, across fiction and nonfiction. And through that, you learn who the best editors are and who the best agents are, and kind of who has really good taste. So it's a good way to get in because you can realize what books you like to read, and then you can go and learn from those people. But scouts genuinely know everything. I always joke that they're like Varys's little birds from Game of Thrones. Like they're the spy masters of the industry. But they do such wonderful things, and they spread books so far across the world. But yes, literary scouts, they're pretty epic people.
Cool.
Nice. And then you did then make the move to actual agency. You joined, I think it was Caskie Motions at the time, that then transitioned into Motions Entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
How did that role change for you then when you moved across there?
I think one of the interesting things between scouting and agenting is that scouting, obviously, you're reading for books for the international market. And you have to say, can I sell this to my publisher in Germany? Or will my French publisher that I work for want this? And so you have a very similar mindset. But then when you go into agenting and you're starting out as an assistant, you're helping to read, and you're also reading for the idea of, can I sell this? Can I sell this in the UK? Who would I sell this to in the UK? And then could I sell this abroad? Would people abroad want to read this? So you have a similar mindset, but you have all of the rights to begin with. So you can do the selling and you can do the pushing, which is really fun, rather than just kind of recommending them. So it was a bit of a switch, but because I had to think so much about the international market in both jobs, it really helped going into agenting. And I was able to go through and redo the then Caskie Motions international rights guide for their book fairs and say, no, this is all the information that we need to give scouts and foreign publishers. And this is how we should present it, because this is like the cleanest way to do it and make it the best that it can be. So that's kind of how I got into agenting and kind of started transitioning into that. And then that job progressed to the point where I then took over the foreign rights and what was going on with the company at the time. So I was selling like Richard Osman in like 47 territories. I was selling Claire Douglas with her great new books, but also all of her backlists. Abigail Dean, Saara El-Arifi, like Hannah Kaner, across the board. It was just such wonderful books with so many international sales, because I just loved them and kind of the wonderful international aspects of them that I could go and sell off.
And see, when it comes to the international markets like that, when you're dealing with 47 different places around the world, is there like a difference that you've seen between the markets of different places, of different cultures, things that take off in one country that don't take off elsewhere, and reasons for why that might be?
It's just local sensibilities, and it's what people in certain cultures like to read more than others. So there'll be days where I'm like, oh, that rom-com is really going to sell in Germany, but not in Japan, because Japan like really like literary novels. If you think of Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and kind of some books that we've had in translation over from Asia, they're more literary, and that's just kind of what they gravitate towards. And then there's some territories where I'm like, sci-fi is not going to sell there, guys. I'm really sorry. Versus Poland, where I'm like, they love sci-fi. They will buy anything that's sci-fi. They really adore it.
Who hates sci-fi?
Yeah, some South American countries.
Oh, really? Okay.
So every once in a while, you're like, okay. But it has been growing so much, so I think everybody does really love sci-fi now. Sci-fi and fantasy. But it's you learn kind of which territories will pick up on something faster, and you also see kind of like some Eastern European countries. If a book sells there, then like one country falls and another falls and another one takes it on. It's like the domino effect for certain regions, and it has to do with culture, what people like to read. So it's fun to see what books sell, but then it's amazing to see what books sell everywhere and what those kind of have in common or not.
I was going to ask as well, obviously foreign, when someone gets an agent, they're wanting, primarily, I think in their head, I want to see my book in the bookshop down the road from me, essentially. But foreign rights can be, a huge part of a package for an author, And have you seen examples of where the foreign rights almost are bigger for that author
Oh,
than
yeah.
the local ones. Yeah.
Yeah, and so foreign rights and rights in general, I think of as like a cake. You have your base layer, which is like your domestic market, so the UK or the US, wherever you're based. So you have a nice solid cake layer, and you're happy with that layer. But then you want another cake layer on top, and that's going to be your US deal. And then all the sprinkles, the funfetti, the candles, the sparklers, all that type of stuff, those are the foreign rights deals. But sometimes they can add on a huge stack of extra cake on top. And I've seen it where I've seen an author who's making only a couple £1,000s in the UK then be sold for hundreds of thousands of pounds in Germany.
Wow.
And being the one that gets to make that phone call, that's basically like, you can now send your kids to school, a really good school. You can now buy a house. Like, it's something that's really, really great and just makes you feel super, super good. So I've seen territories where one big deal will be incredible for you, but I've also seen books where there might be 20 deals that are smaller that still stack up for a lot of good money. So I think when you are looking for an agent and you're having that conversation with them, you want to ask, how do they handle the subsidiary rights, which are your foreign rights, they're your TV rights, they're any extra right that really isn't kind of like that book right. Because you want to see how they view the whole package rather than just, do they think it's a one and done in this country?
Are things like I'm thinking like audiobook rights as well, are they growing in importance as well?
Audiobook rights are growing in importance. One of the annoying kind of issues we have is that the big five publishers tend to have a policy where they will not buy a book unless they can also have audio rights as well. There are publishers who are great at exploiting those rights, creating wonderful books, audiobooks, and then there are others who kind of like sit a little bit. And that's something that you want to see exploited as well. So most of the time, audio will be wrapped up within your domestic deal. If it's not, then you want to know, hey, agent, kind of, are you going to bring this to Audible? Are you going to bring it to Belinda? Are you going elsewhere with it? Like, how are we going to use these rights? And you just want to know that there's a plan in place for those to be used, and just see what comes of it. Nothing's ever guaranteed, but you just want to know kind of that they're thinking about everything in the whole package. Yeah.
Now, I read that your specialist subjects, as they are crime, fantasy, historical, kind of, and book club fiction. Is that fair to say those are the kind of genres that you're interested in? And so I wondered, as an agent, how do you decide the areas you want to specialize in? Is it purely this is the genres I love to read the most, or is it a case of I'm at an agency and they want to make sure we cover all the genres?
For me, I was able to kind of come through and say, what do I like to read the most, and what am I most comfortable with editing? Because if I don't know a genre, I'm not going to be comfortable editing it. And then there's some where I originally always loved fantasy, and I always loved kind of reading more of kind of like the weirder kind of novels that are speculative and such. But as I was working and kind of coming through the industry, I was reading more and more thrillers, which wasn't something that I kind of would read on my own, like in school or in university. So I got to play with thrillers more and kind of learn them from an agenting perspective, which was really fun. So I grew into thrillers, and now I really do love and enjoy them. And so you can learn a little bit, but you also have to go with what you really like to do. Because as an agent and as an author, like, you guys are writing your book 20 times, 40 times over, which means that we're reading the book 20 times, 40 times over until it goes through to publication. And unless you enjoy it, you don't really want to have to keep doing that again and again. So you want to stick to things that you really like and really enjoy. And that also breaks down into whether you do adult publishing or YA crossover publishing or kids publishing. They're different beasts. So I'm comfortable with adult crossover and some YA, but if you send me a middle grade book or a picture book, I just be like, that's great, thank you, but I'm not the best person to help you with this. I'm not your best advocate. Yeah.
And you said there, obviously, part of that decision was what you can work with editorially. So, I mean, because we've had agents on before that they're quite hands-off editorially. I think they view their role as like, get it in front of the right editor, right publisher, and then, but you enjoy the editing process as well. Yeah.
The books that I love the most are the ones that I see as puzzle pieces, and the whole puzzle isn't quite there yet, and we just have to change some of the pieces or get them right in the right slots. So I like to do editorial work, but also at this time in the industry, editors are really kind of overworked, and they're incredible at what they do, but they do way more than just edit now. So when you're kind of starting out and you're quote unquote like a baby agent or a younger agent and you haven't been in here as long, you have to build your credit and your credentials and kind of say, these are the really good books that I've helped put together, and you send them off and you get them in a much better position. But sometimes there are books that I've sent off where they've changed a lot from what we put through, but we got it to a point where we said, okay, we can't do anything more to this. We now need an editor to step in. So I like being involved editorially. I really like helping. But sometimes there have been books where I've just been like, light edits, let's send it off. It really depends on the state of the manuscript and whether or not I think I can get it to a point where it will sell.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if you could roll back a bit then and look at the submission process from the point of view of someone writing to you as an author. I think this is an area that loads of listeners are really fascinated by, the process, how you view the process, how you view applications, and obviously we've got the kind of the deadly hated trifecta of the cover letter, the sample chapters, and the synopsis, and in
the most dreaded things in the entire world.
Yeah, I know, right? So, I mean, in your view, how important are each of those parts to the whole package when you receive it?
So I was like, how do I want to explain all this? So when I open my submissions inbox, the subs platform that I have, I go through, and the immediate thing that I'm looking for is, one, what is the book about? Two, is it a good hook that pulls me in immediately and makes me intrigued to then go open those pages? And then second to last, does this person know what their book is? Do they know kind of the business-minded aspect of who's going to buy their book? How is this going to sell? The business portion of getting your book to market. It just starts with knowing what your book is. And when I start reading your book, I'm going to say, okay, did they pitch it to me kind of correctly? Do they know what they have on their hand? And then lastly, it's, can I sell it? So I have to love it. I have to say, does this person kind of know what they're doing? And can I sell it? Because ultimately, you guys want to be published, and I want to get you guys published. So those are the things that kind of come into play when I start reading that submission letter.
Presumably, it's not like a everything. All of those parts have to be equal. Presumably, sometimes the query letter might be slightly less than you would want, but the pages are amazing and things like that.
And that's the thing. I think the most important thing, because we get so many submissions, is knowing exactly what's different about your book and what's most unique about your book. And if you can nail that, you're setting yourself up really, really, really well. And it's those people that inherently know what's fascinating and unique around their own book that are the ones that I think ultimately succeed, and the ones who know how to pitch their book. Because if you sit down and your mom's just like, you're writing a book, tell me about it, and you have to sit there for 20 minutes and try to explain what it's about, and she's still going, okay. Those are going to be the hard ones. Like, I always think, like, if you were trying to tell your mom like what your job is or what your book's about, how do you do it so succinctly that when she goes and tells her friends, she doesn't mess it up? That's the kind of thing that you need to be able to do to me as well. And it's important, but your cover letter doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the most beautiful piece of art in the entire work, but it's formulaic. And if you follow the formula and you know how to plug everything in, then you're way ahead of the game than a bunch of other people around you. I mean,
do you get I'm just wondering about the process of when you actually receive that email. Are there points, would you sometimes get a query email where you're like, right, that has failed on the first level, so I'm not even going to look at the rest of it? So, because I imagine you get so many queries, you have to have that sort of process of like, right, no, that one's going away. That one looks interesting. That sort of thing.
I go through and I triage. I was just doing this before I got on the call with you guys, and there are 120-ish subs in my inbox right now that I need to consider. So what I do is I immediately go through, and if they're following the formula, it's great. They're telling me what their comparison titles are, what type of book it is, what genre it is. So knowing what genre you're writing in, and then the hook, and that's what I go for. And then the blurb. And all those things need to kind of come together. But then there's some things that like immediately put me off. So if somebody addresses me as dear sir, I'm like, no. Which happens a lot. Or if there's sometimes where I always say, if you wouldn't write it to your boss, don't write it in a cover letter. And that is some of the soundest advice that you guys will get. But that comes up to play very quickly because we're also looking for people that we can work with professionally.
Yeah.
So if that's out the window within 2 seconds, that's a hard pass, guys. And then if there are people who send me things that I'm just not looking for, like, please stop sending me erotic novels. I don't do erotic novels. That's just something where I'm not going to waste your time because I don't do those, and so know who you're sending your book to. And then I'm like, what are the other things that just put me off immediately? Once again, it's just the people that don't know their own book. So if somebody kind of says this is upmarket book club commercial women's fiction genre bending, and they just list all the genres in a row, I'm like,
sounds incredible.
Yeah, I know. Or if people use the titles where they're just like, it's Harry Potter meets Star Wars meets the Bible meets the Easter Bunny. I'm like, you don't know what you're doing.
Does anyone ever use the Bible as a comp?
Yes, they're just like the next best. Somebody one time was like the next biggest bestseller after the Bible, and I was like,
I mean, at least they've got confidence, I guess.
Yeah.
It's really funny sometimes.
I mean, I was going to ask about comps because, I mean, again, we often chat about this with other folk, and how important are they to you, and what do you look for in a comp? And does it have to be a book? Would you happy comparing it to a film or
Oh yeah, if so there's a book that I'm sending out now on submission to editors where I'm comping a film to it. And so I say comps are important because once again, it goes back to, do you know what you are writing? And if you walked into a bookstore and your book was on a shelf or on a table when you walk right in, what are the other books that are going to be around it? And what are the people, if they pick up your book, they're also going to add that book to their bookshop.org cart or their Amazon cart. Because that tells you who's going to buy it, but also what editors am I going to try to sell it to? Because that it's very distinct in the publishing world what lists in publishing houses will do. So there are crime and thriller lists, there are SFF lists, there are different genre lists, and there aren't many lists that do every type of book. So I send to a specific set of editors, and comp titles tell me, okay, I should be sending to this editor versus that type of editor. So comp titles are important, but you can use movies. You can, I think somebody once used like a board game for kind of like a Cluedo type murder mystery.
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to think what board game it might be. Snakes
yeah, I know. It was like we're not playing Twister or something. But I think, but also like people are just like D&D, like that type of stuff. With really good stories. So somebody once comped to Settlers of Catan for me, and I was like, build those roads, guys. But it's all about getting the feel. But you do want some actual book titles in there, and you want books that have kind of sold recently to show like what's on trend, or books that have sold well, or books that just really get to the heart of who's really going to read this one. And
looking at the actual pages themselves, obviously you said earlier that you like to work editorially with the author and stuff, so presumably sometimes you'll see something in there that is compelling, that makes you want to do it, even if it's not perfect. It's not the final version, if you like.
So I like seeing books, like I said, that are like puzzles, and you can play with the plot. So I always say you can play with plot, but you can't teach good writing. So I love people that are just naturally just good writers that are pulling me through, and I can tweak the plot. I can help you murder somebody off. I can help you write a beautiful swoony something or other. But ultimately, they're your words that are going on the page, and I cannot write the book for you. So I'm looking for people who I can either help with plot or who can do the work to get it to a point where then we can sell it. So that's the type of editorial work that I do. But I shouldn't ever kind of really want to change your writing style, because that is something that is inherently you and not me.
Yeah, and you were saying earlier there about kind of knowing where your book is, you know, what kind of genre it is, I suppose, and where it fits in, and obviously having, I think, having an understanding of the market is important for a writer to know.
Yeah.
What's big right now, what's trending, what's not, what's oversaturated, etc.
Yeah.
But then how much of that is important for the writer at the time they're writing it, you know, and how much is important, because writing a book takes so long. It takes so long to think them out. Trends happen slowly, they happen suddenly. It's hard to predict where things might go. What should a writer do in terms of market knowledge? How should they treat that and deal with it?
Read. just read. And if you're somebody who only reads thrillers, you're going to know what types of books people love to read in the thriller market. And you're going to know inherently how to plot a thriller, what to do with a thriller. But if you also have a really fun idea then that progresses that genre just a little bit or a lot of bit, and it's fun, and you'll know that inherently as a reader. So I say go to bookstores, see what's on the front tables, see what's selling online, read the Bookseller in the UK to see the most recent big deals and who's buying what, and they'll always give like a little hint of the book as well. But you have to read. You have to read, and then you just have to have wild ideas. And that's kind of how you plug into the market. You see who's buying what, you see who's selling what. So just, you have to tune in a little bit, but you don't have to be an expert. You just have to be somebody who knows the area, that likes to read in it. And like I said, just have an idea.
And you know, moving away, I guess, slightly from the submission process, I'm just wondering about your sort of day to day. Obviously, you're dealing with these emails coming in, lots of them, hundreds of them, thousands probably a week. But what else does your role entail? You know, are you speaking to editors? Are you managing current clients? All of that sort of stuff.
It's a lot. It's a very social job. So we're here to act as advocates for our authors. And that means that we're helping authors with their queries, with their books, with their edits. So I currently have a thriller author who just delivered the third round of edits to me before we send it off to a publisher. So I'll be reading a book, which might take a whole day or it might take a little bit of a day. But then I've got emails coming in as well from other clients, from editors who have books in the publication process. And that'll be either from signing the contracts through to the, okay, where do you want your finished copies sent to? Or I have a cookbook author who's going to do his photo shoot next week for all of the food, which is really fun. So you're always in contact.
I haven't even thought of that part of a cookbook. So that does sound fun. They just cook all the meals and then just...
Yeah. They cook all the meals to, that are going to have the photos taken of them. So somebody's in the back basically cooking them up, testing the recipe. And then you have somebody doing the photo shoot of the food themselves to make sure that it fits with the style, and they're styling it. And then they take tons and tons and tons of photos. And then you have like the room of all the people in the back who've been there waiting with like forks and knives to eat it once it comes off.
Nothing can go to waste.
Oh, it's really fun. So you're doing everything. So as an agent, you're reading your submissions, which I typically do in the evenings, like after everybody's gone to bed. Like I'm in the corner with my flashlight, like on my laptop, reading submissions and falling in love with books. Or I'm doing edits on a book for a client that already exists, and I'm shepherding them through the whole publication process. And then after, I'm saying, okay, what are you going to write next? Where are we going to take your career next? What are we going to do? And then I'm going for meetings as well. So my market knowledge is going and having conversations with editors across all the houses saying, what are you guys looking for? Like, what's your deepest, darkest desire for a book to come in? So I was in the Hachette offices last week. I was meeting with a crime and thriller editor for coffee yesterday. And it's kind of keeping my knowledge up on what people are looking for. And then how does that fit in with the authors that I have or the authors that I'm going to sign, to make sure that everything's still sellable. And then how do I tweet it all out on across all the social media platforms to get more people who are writing within that area to send me their books so that we can then sell those books. So it's a lot of communication. It's a lot of reading. It's a very good mixture of kind of left brain and right brain business and creativity. But yeah, it just doesn't stop.
And speaking to authors that we know and on the podcast as well, it does seem like the industry as a whole is very busy and becoming very, it can be very difficult even for people that have had books out and stuff like that to sell their next book and things like that. Is the market difficult at the moment generally, do you think?
I think that it kind of feeds into, as we were talking about before, like cultures and what's going on in different places and what people want to read or don't read and how they're taking their escapes, if you will, from reality. I think there's a lot going on in the world right now, and everybody slightly feels a bit hesitant and a bit worried and a bit unsure. And that can really stifle creativity. And so I think it's hard for people to write within that space, but it's also sometimes then hard for us within the industry to kind of say, okay, what's going to be next so that we can uplift people or distract people. And I think we're all just kind of taking a moment to kind of go, okay, we need to take a breather, figure out what's next, and then keep going. And the industry is getting harder. It is, but I think it's because there's this kind of big overbearing presence of what's going on in life. But ultimately, though, what I have found is that people will always return to books, and people want good books and good writing to feel that comfort, to feel that happiness, the escapism. And so we're at a point as well where, publishing houses are kind of understaffed and overworked, and they need a bit more help. So as agents, we're doing a lot more editing and putting work into things. But it also means that the whole industry is slightly shifting, but we're all slightly shifting together as we all figure it out. But it also means, though, that if you're a writer and you still write something good and you know what's on trend and what's going, people will always still want to come and find your books. So it's one of those things where, more books than ever are being published, but that gives more opportunity and more voices to be heard, which I think is good. So I don't know if that's uplifting or not.
Well, I mean, one thing I read that you'd said when you said online about you kind of the books that you love to read and the genres, etc., and you talk a lot about kind of blended genres and books that maybe don't sit neatly into one category. And I think one example you gave was like a kind of family drama with a time travel twist, or that sort of thing. We obviously see kind of a bit of a speculative sci-fi element into like a crime or a drama type story. And how are those books doing? Those are books which aren't easily marketable or don't easily compare to other titles for publishers. Are those books selling well? Are they harder to do?
They can be hard, but they can also be done really well. So as I was saying with like lists, as I'm reading something, I'm saying, okay, what kind of a list am I going to sell this to? So there are some crime thrillers that now have more speculative elements that will sit on a crime and thriller list. But then you could also send it to like a sci-fi fantasy list and just be like, this is pitched as this, but there's a thriller element to it. So there are books that are doing well. I mean, like, I'm going to forget. It's on my bookshelf somewhere. Where is it? Ministry of Time. Time travel novel, obviously, but published very, very, very commercially, and did very, very well. But most people should be like, it's time travel. That should be a sci-fi and fantasy list. It wasn't. So there are books that do well, and it all depends on how you pitch them and kind of where they go. But I do think that readers are more willing to pick up something that has a different element to it now. There's some people who will just love their bread and butter and go straight thriller, and that's great. But I also think that there's more kind of change in people wanting something a little bit new and creative. So having that little bit of different element in it, they're willing to kind of go with it. Yeah.
Nice.
And you yourself moved obviously to Greenstone Literary earlier this year. You know, how have you found that move? But also, as an agent, do you have, as you build up a list, because obviously you have to, as well as dealing with the new clients, you have to deal with the existing clients. Is there a sort of ideal number that you want to have at one time? Sort of thing?
First of all, I love the ladies at Greenstone. They're very great. I was put in touch with them, and we had coffee, and they're just super, super nice. And I thought it was a really good fit because their list tends to be kind of quite different from mine. So the authors that they have are absolutely wonderful and fantastic. But the genres that they do are kind of different from the genres that I do. So we kind of fit together like almost like a yin and a yang a little bit. But so it's a very good home, and they're fantastic. And then as I keep growing though, there's no number in my mind where I'm like, oh, I love that. I mean, would I like just one author who makes me millions and I only have to work with that one person? that would be great, guys. If you know anybody like that, send them my way. But I think I'm more mindful of being able to balance the authors that I have with new ones coming in. Because books, as you guys know, go in waves. It takes 18 months to publish a book. So everybody's at slightly different stages. So not everybody requires the same things at the same time. So they go in waves. So I want to make sure that there's just a good balance of me being able to be very intense with one client while another one is off writing a manuscript. And there's that good balance, and that I'm not overworked, but also that if somebody emails me, they don't feel like they're waiting for days for me to email them back. So there's no magic number, but I don't know how some people have like 80 clients or something like that. It's just you can't do that job. It's insane.
Yeah, I wonder about that myself when I see agents with all these clients. I'm like, how do any of them get any attention when they need it?
They're not. They're not, or they're getting attention from a team. Is kind of what's going on. So that's why I always kind of say, look out for people who are building their lists, and you can be a part of the people that you're helping to build as well as agents, because you're going to have their time and you're going to have their energy, quite frankly, rather than kind of sitting on a list of another 80 people that divvy that up a bit. But yeah, I'm happy with my clients, and I like having that balance. So it's a lot of like self-awareness of your own energy as well.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, I'm going to ask a big question now. Getting towards the end of the episode, big question. Where do you think you see the market going in the next few years, and what kind of areas do you think you'd like to see more of?
In my heart of hearts right now, I really want to see kind of like what's going to go on in the thriller space and the mystery space. I feel like everybody's kind of waiting for the next trend right now. And for me, I just want really good, solid, back to basics, who done it murder mystery. And I think people kind of want that familiarity and that comfort a little bit. But what type of a twist that's going to take, I'm not exactly sure. And I've also had conversations with people who say, we want thrillers, but we do want some horror elements, or we do want this, but with something a little bit more involved. So that type of genre X thing is good, but it still has to fit kind of a bit more squarely in one category, but have a little bit of speculative. Is it a ghost? Is it not? Type of a situation. So I think we're going to be growing in that area. I think romantasy will settle in. I think everybody wants a feel-good rom-com right now with what's going on. But I also think that people just want to be entertained. So that's what I'm kind of saying is, if you have a good book that's well written, people are still just going to fall in love with it.
Excellent.
what do you think? What's the current big thing, or just recent big thing you think is going to go away for a while? You know, is it like vampires with Twilight for a while? You know, is there any kind of genre which is kind of at the moment burned out a little bit, or on the cusp of burning out?
I think that the genres are all solidly there, but I think everybody's trying to see like what the next evolution of the genre is. So people have been reading about fairies and fae for a very long time in romantasy. So I'm kind of sitting here like, give me something different. Give me the creepy other type of supernatural force. Or as you're saying, like things going in cycles. So vampires were huge when I was like a teenager, and they're coming back around. So I'm like, yes. Kind of think about what you loved to read as a kid, and what was big then, and what might be coming and swinging back into popularity. Because I mean, we now have some disposable income as adults, and what did we buy as teens and kids that we love? That now that we have money to pay for it, I'm gonna go out and buy it. So I always say think about that a little bit and see what kind of.
That's good advice.
Yeah. What would your teenage self
exactly? What would your teenage self have read and bought?
Exactly. Like if you
we're old enough now, that's now coming full circle again. That's
exactly.
Some of us might be too old for that. You've that cycle.
Second cycle for you, Marco.
Well, those were the main questions that we had, Liza. But we always like to end every podcast by asking our guests the same questions. The first of which is, what was the last book that you read that isn't one that you're sending out in submission, I guess?
That is also really hard, because if you ask an agent or like anybody in the industry, like, what are you reading? You're like, So I'm like actually one of the worst people for book recommendations. I'm like, you can get it in 12 months to 18 months.
Exactly.
But I recently finished reading The Compound, and that's, if you guys haven't read it, it's great. No. And it's thriller dystopian-esque, where like it's all about a game show essentially, where a bunch of people are put into a compound with a gorgeous house, and together they have to work together to build up the compound and do tasks every day. And one task reward might be like a ping pong table, another might be bananas or a front door. And it's all these people, but it's like a dating show at the same time. And you know something has gone on in this like godforsaken world, and it's always hinted at, but you're never exactly sure. And it's just this creepy atmosphere of like people getting voted off. The challenge is becoming like a little bit darker, a little bit more manipulative.
Sort of Squid Game. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like Love Island kind of like.
Love Island, Squid Game.
Yeah, so it was just really well done, and it takes kind of like our obsession with these reality shows and these games to like a next level, which I thought was beautifully done. So I finished reading that, and then I have a proof of a book called Savage Blooms that I got when I was at Orbit last week, and that's coming out in October of 2025. That's romantasy, set in Scotland, creepy dark fae Scottish castle, and so I was like, yes, I will happily read that. So pre-order that, guys. You don't have to wait 12 months, you have to wait like 2. So that's what I've been reading recently.
What about the last film that you watched?
Film, oh my god. Oh, the last TV show that I was just watching is The Summer I Turned Pretty. So I just watched across the board, guys. So I was like, I just watched the episode that just came out. And then for films, I'd have to go through like basically like my Amazon or my Netflix. It was.
No, it's worst question on the spot, and your mind goes completely blank.
Yeah, I was like, can I log into Netflix?
What is a film? Have I ever seen a film before? Yeah. Well, let's jump on to the very final thing we always do, which is a super quick fire, either or, no right answer to most of them.
Okay.
But let's begin with historical fiction or crime fiction.
Ooh, crime.
Nice.
TV or cinema?
TV.
Night owl or early bird?
Night owl.
And fancy restaurant or takeaway?
fancy restaurant. My husband's a chef, so
Okay.
Oh, nice. Okay. And last one, let's go audiobook or ebook.
Audiobook. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
That heavy sigh was simply because nobody ever picks ebook, and
He changes it up
not
as
sure
well.
which
He
com-
tries
I
to
change
change it
up and
up,
no one
but
ever-
no one ever picks ebook.
I do
What if
a
it
lot
said-
of reading on my Kindle of submissions, so it's nice for me because I'm doing so much reading to take a break with an audiobook and just like go for
Okay,
a
fair
walk
enough.
along the river, or like go biking with an audiobook, just something. So it's
The
it's
production
like,
quality on audiobooks has got so much better in recent
Oh,
years as
yeah.
well.
They're
It's
brilliant these days.
incredible.
Yeah, I'm a big fan
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah. You guys should pay attention. There's the new audiobook awards that the Bookseller are doing.
All right.
The very
Oh,
next
is it?
coming up. Yeah. So take a look into those. There'll be
Excellent.
some
nice.
books there.
Oh,
Excellent.
cool. Yeah, and also it's easier to kind of squeeze books in, isn't it?
Yeah.
When doing audio, you can get a chapter or so in places where you're doing stuff. You can't just
Exactly.
sit down and actually read a book.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Liza. That was great.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
Well, thanks very much to Liza for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed that chat, and always interesting to hear, things that I think people sometimes forget. You're always wanting that huge 6-figure advance as an author, but sometimes you can get a low advance here, but then your forum rights, your audiobook rights, all these other rights that are still out there, a good agent is going to try and exploit those for you. And as she said, she's had some incredible deals where maybe the domestic deal wasn't great, but then 6 figures abroad and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's easy to get caught up in wanting that big bookseller headline figure that grabs everyone's attention, and and also puts a lot of pressure on you, I think, and on the book to perform, to sell like people are expecting it to sell. Whereas, I mean, I'm certainly guilty of not really thinking about stuff beyond that, the foreign rights, your TV rights, your Audible rights, etc. Like there's so many other avenues that book can go down to make money, which involves you doing very little other work. You've
already
selling
written
the
the
same
book,
thing
so,
again
yeah,
and again.
exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. So yeah, it's definitely what if you're having a chat with potential agents and stuff, definitely explore how they deal with forum rights and all that sort of stuff, because it's very important.
And certain agents will have better connections abroad than others. So I think, you 100% agree with that. Definitely something which you should be thinking about. What will you be doing for my book in other markets than just the UK?
Yeah, definitely. So, thanks again to Liza for coming on. We'll put a link to her page in the podcast description if you are wanting to query her. All the instructions are on there. And next week, we have another great literary agent coming on. We are speaking with Ed Wilson.
Yes, it was a wonderful chat we had with Ed. Another really, really interesting insight into the world of agenting, into the day-to-day life, into what his views are on where the market's been, where the market's going. And it's just a fun chat. It's a really fun guy. It's quite a good laugh. Yeah,
it's a good laugh. And he tells us all about sort of, the publishing industry and how it's changed significantly and what that means for authors and stuff as well. So it's another fun and interesting episode. So please do tune in for that one. If you've enjoyed today's episode, if you're watching on YouTube, please give us that thumbs up and subscribe. Leave a comment down below as well if you want. And otherwise, on your podcast app, we'd love a 5-star rating. Would be lovely. And a little review. That would be great as well, because that helps us to grow the podcast. We've got a huge number of episodes there with, it's a huge resource for writers, for readers as well. So we want to try and get it out to as many people as possible. And, ratings and reviews and views and listens and all that sort of stuff really makes a massive difference to getting found by the all-important algorithm. So, we'd really appreciate it if you could take a couple of seconds to do that. That would be great.
And if you want to get in touch, well, you can always do that in a number of ways. The usual methods apply. Look for us on all the social media platforms. Just search for UK Page One across your Blue Sky, your Instagram, your Facebook, YouTube channels. You can send us an email, which is podcast@rightgear.co.uk. You can leave us a comment under this video if you're watching on YouTube. You can just leave us a review, leave us a comment in your review under your 5 stars. That's also acceptable. We don't care what the review says. As long as the stars are 5, you can put whatever you want. It's fine. I don't know if that's true or not, actually. Or just say nice things. It's even better.
Yeah. Just don't choose to be nice, not nasty. That's always a good thing. Also just a reminder that we are part of the Step Podcast Network. So there's a whole range of shows, which is going to soon be expanding with even more shows from other creators as well, for writers, and those interested in the publishing industry and interested in books and stuff like that. We're obviously partnered up with Nadine Matheson of The Conversation. We do our joint show Adventures in Publishing Land every couple of weeks, which looks at the latest publishing news. But as I say, there will soon be more shows joining as well, which we will. Exciting announcement coming soon. And then on top of that, I've decided that I'm going to do some other mad podcast project.
But Marco, you don't have enough.
No, I just spare time. I view as a wasted thing. So more on that in due course. We'll see how quickly I can get that off the ground. But yes, in the meantime, have a good week, and we will speak to you next episode.
See you later.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like these ones down here.
And if you want to get in touch, you can do so by finding us on our social media platforms up here, or drop us a comment way down below there.
But otherwise, thanks for listening, and join us for the next episode.
See you later.